Welcome, folks. And we have a packed agenda for you all today, and it looks like a packed room as well that's continually going up. I'll introduce our guest in just a moment, but I'm Owen. I'm on the growth team here at AirOps, and we've been running this growth leader series for the last 3 months. I think this is our 6th edition, where we try and co-host really good events with deep, insightful partners that do their own research. We share out our own stuff as well, but really try and give you a feel for, with the changing dynamics of organic search, AI overviews, all of these things that we hear about. We like to embed ourselves deep in the data and start to share out what are some of the learnings that we all as practitioners can put into play. So what we'll go through today is a lot about AI and SEO, the changing landscape. But yeah, before we go any further, I'd love to introduce Josh on our team as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Filker. I'm new to the AirOps team as head of content. Really excited to be here. I've had some previous stops at ClickUp, TopTal, and some other ones. Excited to connect with everybody. If you have some questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I'll be taking care of those today.
Yeah, and as Josh said, as anything comes up live, feel free to put it in the Q&A section, and then we'll leave time at the end for dedicated conversation as well. So yeah, getting into the agenda, delighted that today we're joined by George of Minuttia. Super impressive background. We were preparing our content here and he was sharing out so many facts that we had to start to trim at one point of what would make it and what wouldn't. But really today we're going to go through kind of the 2-year evolution or the landscape of search, kind of where it was, where it is today, and then start to think a little bit more about where we're going and how to update your own mental model, whoever it might be positioned at the moment. And then we're also going to take a look more at the combination of AI and SEO, how you can start to think about those two elements together, maybe where people are going wrong, where people are finding success. And then obviously, as I mentioned, at the end, we'll finish up with plenty of time for Q&A. So yeah, would love to say a formal welcome to George Chasiotis of Minuttia and Growth Waves. I would particularly recommend trying to subscribe to both newsletters. I've been subscribed for the last few months. They're fantastic. Get a lot of content ideas and then technical SEO, little tips and tricks as well. But George himself has a very impressive background building growth agencies. He's been featured in many different external newsletters like Growth Unhinged and Reforge. So I'm sure you've come across his path before. But yeah, definitely an impressive guest to have today, and we're excited to dive into extra content with them. But George, anything else you want to share with the group?
Not at the moment. I mean, this intro is running very smoothly so far. So and I'm excited. I also see a lot of people joining us today, so I'm very excited about this one. We can continue.
Yeah, amazing. Well, welcome anyway. Before we continue, we've offered this as a series of strategy sessions in our last few webinars. To be honest, most of them have ended up being booked before the webinars have ended. So I wanted to put this as the leading slide from our end. But we've partnered with a lot of very good content teams over the last few months as we've dug more into the area of content operations. But following on from this webinar, if you'd love to do kind of a private strategy session with us, we'll dive into kind of reviewing your domain's potential with all of the changes that George is going to go through, happening in the wider landscape, how to navigate all of these elements, and then trying to give you some best practices, tips and tricks for AI-led content creation for your brand. So basically 30 minutes to an hour with our team where we start to share out some of the strategies we think you can put into play to get your name amongst some of these leading world-class content teams working with us today. But yeah, I'll leave it up for another few seconds for people to scan the QR code or email us at team@airops.com. In both cases, just mention the Growth Leader series, and then on our side, we'll make sure you're looked after. All right, moving deeper into the meat and potatoes of today. George, did you want to screen share this?
Yeah, I can share my screen.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, and I'll go full screen. Just let me know that you can see my screen. Give me a thumbs up.
Perfect.
Okay, let's do this. So before we begin, let me just preface this by saying that in the past few months, a common theme in the conversations I have with people working at companies, some of them are clients, some of them not, is what should we do next, or what should we do now? Because many things have changed in the last couple of years, and people have this concern of, are we in the right direction? Should we be doing more of this instead of that, and so on. Another thing that I see is that people are very interested in benchmarks and data and studies so that they can better understand the current landscape. And then I thought, okay, let's do a webinar about it so that I can answer these questions at scale, and so that I can also frame a few things myself, right? For me and for the team at Minuttia. So let me start here. SEO used to be about, we did a webinar a couple of years ago. In fact, it was in June 2022. And back then I introduced this concept of, not introduced really, it's not like I was the first one who talked about it, but I gave our thoughts on what topical authority is and more broadly SEO is about back in 2022. And it was about topic breadth and depth, publishing velocity, the frequency at which you put out content, content optimization, crawl efficiency, in other words, how easily accessible your content and pages on your website are, monitoring your content and performing content audits to identify issues and address those issues as they arise, and good old backlinks. This was 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, really. Now, something changed in 2022, towards the end of 2022, when OpenAI rolled out ChatGPT. I think that this was the pivotal moment, and it changed everything around SEO as we knew it. So before November 30, 2022, when they rolled out ChatGPT, Google was the dominant search engine and most popular internet service. SEO mainly meant optimizing for Google search. Besides algorithm updates, the UI of Google search, the feature snippet and the 10 blue links, it remained pretty much the same. There weren't like fundamental or very big changes, right? SEO professionals had more control over the final outcome, and of course the incentive of organic traffic was there. This is why this industry had a reason to exist. After November 30 of 2022, as we will see, Google is still the dominant search engine and most popular internet service, despite of what you may read on LinkedIn about the death of Google. SEO means optimizing for Google, yes, but it also means optimizing for conversational search engines, video search, LLMs, forums, search features, and social media, which means that, as we will see, the job of SEO professionals has become way more complicated than it used to be, and way more challenging, really. The UI of Google search has drastically changed, and I think that we haven't seen, we will definitely see more changes even this year. Unfortunately, SEOs have less control over the final outcome, and we will explain why that is. However, the incentive of organic traffic is still here, and I will share an example of that. The first point in the previous slide was regarding Google's dominance. As we can see here, we have two screenshots from Cloudflare's 2023 year in review and 2024 year in review, a report they released at the beginning of the year for the previous year. And we can see that Google is still the most popular internet service, not just in the search engines category, but in general, okay? Nothing changed there, right? One thing that we need to keep in mind, I know that, you see all these posts on LinkedIn declaring Google dead, and, Perplexity just killed Google and all this kind of stuff, which are good to drive clicks and eyeballs, but we should take a look at the data and what the data says. And we have this data study by Datos, as you can see here. You can access it by clicking on that link. I think you will have access to the deck. And as we can see, as of May 2024, it doesn't seem that AI platforms take search SER away from Google. Now, things may have changed a bit because this is not, I mean, we would like to see a version comparing May 2024 to May 2025. But up until that point, it doesn't seem that AI platforms take search SER away from Google. In fact, the average number of Google searches per desktop user is increasing between May 2023 and 2024. The share of traditional search engine users who also use AI platforms has increased, but just by 2 percentage points. And the vast majority, staggering 99% of AI platform users have not abandoned traditional methods, and they still rely on traditional search engines like Google, right? Which means that they may use these AI search engines, yes, but they also use Google. Now, SEO is changing though, and this screenshot is just an example of how big changes are. What you see on the left is a screenshot for the search results for the keyword best habit tracker apps back in 2022. And as you can see, I would summarize this SERP by saying that 9 out of 10 search results are cookie cutter listicles. No disrespect to the brands who created these pieces and ranked back then. And we can see on the right how results look like today, where we have just 3 listicles, right? And then we have Reddit, we have App Store listings, we have Quora, we have an MIT forum, and we even have a LinkedIn post. But besides all that, we also have search features like discussions and forums, which were not there. Now, what can we learn from this example? From 9 out of 10 cookie cutter listicles, we went to 3 out of 10 in just 2 years, right? And out of these 9 initial results, only 1, which is Zapier, a very big and prominent brand, is still in the top 10. We also have features like forum threads, and of course we can debate on how useful they are. For example, how useful Reddit threads from 3-4 years ago, how useful they are, but they are there. We have search features, app directory listings, social media posts, and where all this boils down to is that cookie cutter SEO content won't cut it anymore. And of course, the way we do that has to change. We need to adapt. SEO is changing, not just in terms of how the SERPs look like. We have to start thinking about what other places people may use to search for products like ours or terms that are relevant to what we do. Here's just and of course this is case specific, right? It doesn't apply to all brands, to all keywords, but here's just an example. On the left, you can see Google Trends, basically search volume trends for the term skincare routines men. And as we can see, there is a 40% decrease in the last 12 months, while for the same term, skincare routines men, we can see that people, the trend is 237%, the searches are 237% up in the last 12 months, which means that in this particular example, TikTok may, quote unquote, steal searches from Google because people, find better results on TikTok for this particular term. So we have to take into account where searches happen and they may happen in places beyond just Google. Now, we also have AI search engines, which I briefly touched on earlier. Keep in mind that according to Gartner, by 2028, there will be a decrease in the organic search traffic brands get as more consumers embrace generative AI-powered search. I don't necessarily believe that because, you know, all these search engines will eventually send referral traffic to these same brands. And of course, as we saw earlier, it's not as if Google is losing market share or anything. It's still the dominant power when it comes to the search engine category. Now, there are already tools and techniques that can help you monitor and improve your AI visibility. For the time being, I give more emphasis to monitoring and understanding your audience, as optimization, as we will see in the next slide, is kind of fractured and kind of a black box at this point. In other words, there is no one size fits all regarding AI search optimization. Now, why I say this, I read this great post by SEO Interactive the other day, and they were basically breaking down searches that happen on these AI search engines, if we can call them, if we can call the category more broadly like this. And there are three different types really of AI search optimization. We have LLMs like Llama and Claude, which are reliant on their training data to give you like the outputs based on your prompts. And of course, there are cutoff dates and whatnot there, which means that data may not be as accurate, right? Then you have Perplexity and AI overviews, Google's AI overviews, which are let's say AI search engines with real-time data, links, citations, and updates. And last but not least, you also have ChatGPT and Google Gemini, which are kind of hybrids, which combine training data and accessing the web in real time. And you have to be in the position to optimize differently for each of these categories, which I know is difficult because we have to optimize for just one search engine, Google, and it's difficult enough. Imagine if you have to think about all these different places that searches happen and optimize for them, right? Now, how you should approach this though? First, I would say that you should stop assuming that what you do on the Google search optimization side will automatically translate into AI search optimization. We saw that there are three distinct categories of these AI search engines, and so each of them needs like a different logic when it comes to optimizing for it. You have to experiment though with the same queries on different search engines to understand the differences in the outputs. And you also have to experiment with different queries on the same search engine to understand, again, the differences between the outputs. And by the way, these things are all like very dynamic. Just this week, I saw that ChatGPT, they introduced map listings on their app, which was not a thing 1 week ago for one of the terms I'm following, and I try to influence in a way. It's a small experiment I run. And of course, you have to experiment with different queries to see what triggers training data vs fresh data. And last but not least, you have to keep doing what's good for your brand and your website. SEO
Can I ask you a
changing.
question? Oh,
Yeah, of course.
Let me ask you real
Josh.
quick. Which model or tool do you see yourself kind of going back to, or you see like the most like data? Which tool you're getting like the most data from on some of these things, as far as ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini?
I would say, the standard one I have open in one of my tabs is ChatGPT. but it also depends on the use case, right? I know that if I want like fresh data and accessing the web, I will probably go to Google. Very rarely Perplexity, even though I even have the premium product they have. So I'm between ChatGPT and Google.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Another thing that we briefly touched on is understanding your audience really, which is very important in the context of, you know, SEO is changing. What we see here is a study published by SparkToro, and what this chart shows is that people who visit major CRM / productivity, because Monday is not really a CRM, platforms are less likely to use traditional search engines and more likely to use AI tools. So for example, you can see that these folks are above the average when it comes to visiting archive.org for some reason, ChatGPT, and Claude, Perplexity. And this is something that you need to take into account and into consideration. At the end of the day, despite of, you know, what people say on LinkedIn, are your users and your audience, are they on these AI search engines, right? This is something that you need to answer. And if they are, then you have to at least monitor things. And it's such a shame because I wanted to share a new tool that I've also invested in that allows you to monitor responses and how your brand is presented in these tools. But the team didn't have screenshots for me to feature, maybe in a future webinar. Now,
on that one, George,
yeah.
maybe mention out the name, but I'm interested for myself and for the audience, like, as you have there's different like platforms, we'll call it. There's like ChatGPT, there's Perplexity. If people wanted to experiment and answer your question of where their audience lives or how their audience is searching, there might be tools, and you can mention that one. But what are other maybe smaller bets they could take, or little like content experiments they could run to figure out where does my audience live if I'm to like maybe invest more in a later quarter on one of these AI search engines?
So this data you can get from SparkToro. So you can see SparkToro, they added a feature where you can basically see the affinity of the audience to specific, you know, tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and whatnot. I don't know how they got to that level of granularity, but they have it, and you can, you know, feel free to check it out and use it. Now, I mean, another thing that I would suggest is that you obviously start looking at your GA4 data to see if you get referral traffic from any of these websites. That would definitely help and tell you, you know, whether people, you know, come to your website through these apps. And if you want to experiment, I mean, there are some things, and we run some experiments, but, you know, it's nothing I can share with certainty yet. I would say that you can start small. For example, you can create something in like a custom GPT, which we've done. It's not a lot of work really, as a piece of content, and distribute it in one of these channels like ChatGPT, and see if, you know, it can bring something. You can even add, which we've done, by the way, you can even add CTAs in your custom GPT with UTM parameters to be able to track the traffic that comes from these tools, right? And last but not least, the, you know, monitoring. I think this will be a very big part, and it's not, monitoring is important mostly for bigger brands. The company I was referring to earlier is RankB, and what they are doing is basically giving you the ability to track how your brand is presented in different AI search engines, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if that's that's what you had in mind with this question, Owen.
Yeah.
But that's how I would go about it.
That's super. I know Julian had a related question in the Q&A, but Julian, if that didn't fully answer it as well, feel free to chime in again. But yeah, thanks for that, George.
Another thing we discussed is the change in the UI, right? Because Google, for a long time, it was just 10 blue links, just a featured snippet to make our SEOs, lose our sleep. And that was pretty much it, right? But here we can see substantial changes. AI overview, which, to me is a minor change really, because it's like a featured snippet 2.0. It's even better than featured snippet because it has several links here. But then we have, people also ask, which was there for the most part. We have videos and we have short videos increasingly. What people are saying, and different perspectives from the web. Could be video, could be tweets, and so on. I've seen also Substacks and whatnot. And we have the very annoying discussions and forums with anything from Reddit to whatever forums Google considers relevant for that particular search. So the UI of search is changing. Another thing I mentioned earlier is that SEOs were in control, and in fact that was one of our advantages, one of our secrets. Like, we can quote unquote manipulate the search results, right? And we see that with the introduction of these features, things get a bit more blurry, right? And I mentioned Reddit earlier a couple of times. We serve, by we I mean Minuttia, we serve B2B SaaS companies primarily, right? And for these companies, there are certain sets of keywords that are important because they drive pipeline, they drive signups, and so on. These are what we call the alternative keywords. For example, Asana alternatives, the comparison keywords, Asana VS Monday, and the software keywords, project management software, right? And we thought, okay, we did these studies back in 2022, I think. Why don't we do a follow-up study to see how things have changed? And so we did that, and we analyzed 1,000 alternative keywords, 500 comparison keywords, and 1,485 software keywords. And we found that one of the highlights really was that Reddit is one of the most visible websites, for across the three studies, right? So for the first one, it's the third most visible website. For comparison keywords, it's the most visible website. And for software keywords, again, it's the most visible website, which means that it's part of the journey, and we have to find a way to not spam it, because Reddit can also be a very nasty place, and you have to be very careful with what you do there. But since we know that it's part of the journey and it influences buyer behaviors and decisions, we have to find a way to get in there, right? Now, the main argument of people who claim that SEO is dead is that the incentive may not be there in a year or a couple of years, or at the end of every year, which is usually when these people make these claims. To me, the incentive is still there. SEO is far from dead. Okay, it's changing, yes, as we saw, and we have to dive way deeper. Our job is way more complicated, but that's, to me at least, way more exciting. Here's just an example from an experience we had with one of our website properties. On January 1st, Netflix released the documentary Don't Die, which covers Brian Johnson's approach to extending life and health span. As you can see from the Google Trends screenshot, the interest in Brian Johnson post-publishing the documentary spiked, right? And of course, following Netflix release, a series of terms around Brian Johnson, health and life habits also picked up. Of course, this helped websites covering these terms and topics get more visibility and traffic. And we have a property that covers these topics. In fact, we have a property that's called routinebase.com. And one of the pieces we have in there was covering and is covering Brian Johnson's daily routine. And as you can see here, after this release happened, traffic for this piece of content spiked, right? And to me, this is a very small, a tiny indication that SEO is far from dead. Because if events like this happen and what you see next is a change in like search behavior and an uplift in demand, then this means that people still use organic search to find things. So we saw that SEO back in 2022, when I did this webinar, was about points 1 to 6, topic breadth and depth, publishing velocity, content optimization, crawl efficiency, content monitoring, and backlinks. But nowadays, SEO is way more complicated, which makes our job more difficult, but way more exciting as well, right? We have to start thinking about brand. We have to start thinking about and talking about digital PR, leveraging social media and forum-like and UGC websites. We have to go multi-format because, as we saw earlier, it's not just text-based content that we need today to win. We have to start monitoring and slightly start optimizing for AI search engines, and from a set and forget or low maintenance approach to entirely dynamic and fast changing. The thing is that most SEOs think that the biggest opportunity for AI for SEO is text generation, which as you can see, that reads, to me at least, as low quality content at scale just for the sake of it. This is wrong. I think that AI can have great use and can be a great vehicle for SEOs to win in this very dynamic and ever-evolving landscape in 3 different ways. And since we are close to the end, let me just in 3 different ways: building experiences, apps, and attaining productivity gains. Experiences, just an example, we built this custom GPT here, Content Strategy GPT, which helps SaaS companies build a successful content strategy in minutes. As you can see here, it has over 300 chats, right? And even though we don't track things closely, I would assume that it drives some traffic, or at least brand awareness for our brand, right? We talked about apps. I built this UTM builder in a couple of minutes, and you can do the same, by the way. And this is a huge tool in the hands of SEO professionals, content marketers, and whatnot. And of course, productivity gains. And there is a reason why everyone is talking about AirOps these days. I will pass the baton to the AirOps guys to talk about these productivity gains and AI workflows. But before that, I have one last slide with some final thoughts. You have to understand the current landscape. You have to get in the trenches, regardless of your position. You shouldn't just dictate and send memos to your team, just go and see this AI thing. You have to get your hands dirty and do these things yourself. In my experience, no one else is going to do it for you, right? No matter how good your team is, which may require you to get out of your comfort zone and learn something new. We all have to embrace this change. Again, it's challenging, but it has never been more exciting, if you ask me. This is one of the most interesting times to be in SEO. And I would suggest that you should treat challenges as opportunities for organic growth. And I will stop sharing my screen now and pass it over to you, Owen and Josh.
Amazing. Let me screen share here. There was actually one slide I just wanted to like reiterate again, because I think it was like, this is very powerful, George. And relating back to a metric you had earlier, which was there was previously 10 blue links for something that like Zapier ranked for. And then I think they were the only surviving like link in that list today, kind of like 2 years on. Maybe across these elements here, given that 9 others dropped out of that list, or maybe up to 9 dropped out, what would you say on the Zapier side they have done, maybe from this 12 list of items, that made sure that they kept top of mind and they kept like that persistent ranking?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't monitored I haven't like closely monitored Zapier and what they do. I was just stating the fact that they are the only ones who are still there. And that's the only thing I can say, is that we increasingly see big brands dominate search results, right? Smaller players, unfortunately, may lose visibility. That's, I wouldn't attribute it just to the Zapier brand, but it's definitely, one of the factors, one of the main ones. I'm not sure how well they do in all these other points. What's important for people to understand, though, is that not everyone is, Zapier, right? So you have to, if you're not Zapier, you have to think about all these other things. And yeah.
Love it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead, Josh.
No. Well, we just had some questions. People were interested in your GPT that you shared and how they might be able to get access to that.
I can drop it in the chat. That wouldn't be let me just drop it in the chat then. But yeah, it's accessible.
Nice. Just for the Zapier one, the other thing I'll add to your answer, George, is I think they do a really good job looking at like their domain health on content refresh and optimization, and running content teams, running marketing teams. Sometimes the worst thing you can see is like the need to like retire or like archive some content, and like keep it refreshed as well, because it means you're not adding new stuff, you're not spending time on that. So definitely have found ourselves, or like previous companies we've been at, but particularly with customers, where they want to set up like evergreen sort of like automation, trying to keep that top of mind. In like the Zapier case, I think does give them an advantage as well.
They are not complacent, I can tell you that, because we did a case study on them. We featured them on Growth Waves because back when there was this spike on like topics around AI, best AI tools and whatnot. They leveraged that and they managed to drive a lot of traffic and brand awareness and whatnot by covering these topics first. So I mean, they must be doing something right. Yeah.
Love it. I think that leads nicely into the couple of slides I have here to bring us to Q&A. But I think everything you went through, George, just to me shone out that it's a drastically changing landscape. So traditional search engines still probably the main port of call for someone to find information, but you're dealing with competition in terms of different channels. You're dealing with competition in terms of like within the features that Google's now offering in that like search view. And then you have this whole other player out there of AI searches and the overviews that are there to battle with as well. So I think you got to it in your recap, but it really brings marketers and SEOs back to first principles of, and it's like Eli Schwartz's product-led SEO book, but like understanding the problem, understanding your audience, and then trying to build on top of that. So just like we were asking questions around maybe some of the trendy AI search tools or what like social channels to go after, it really comes back to where does your audience live? And then what's going to be true, I think, no matter who or how content gets produced, the strongest content that meets audience expectations, it's going to get clicks, it's going to get engagement, and that'll thrive independent of channel, be it a LinkedIn post, a lead magnet, a really thought out article, a webinar. It's the really good content that will continue to thrive. And then I saw a really good LinkedIn post over the weekend, which was by a CEO of a company whose name I forget, but they mentioned needing to have like a 3-month AI plan and then a 3-year AI plan. I think something with everything George went through, this changing landscape, just embeds the need to maintain that dynamism and then need to like have shorter term bets to test. Oh, like if I run stuff that is optimized for perplexity, can I get traffic out of it? Or if I want to try a new channel, like can I set goals, expectations, and then try and visualize the results thereafter? So getting like shots on deck, I think is very important, and having the flexibility to do that and learn, that's going to set you up for longer term success, but always maintaining that, like trying to make long-term investments that can adapt with you. The last thing you want is a tool or some process that when a change comes or someone throws something new on your desk, it doesn't work anymore. I think we've all been there before, and we don't want to repeat that situation. So yeah, I just to like highlight AirOps for a second, there's some very impressive logos and like content teams we're working with today, from Toys R Us and Angie to Deepgram and Graphite. And I think what a lot of these companies and just generally world-class content teams have as like a skill set and something they always keep as their North Star is driving like their content strategy from like data. So be it making smaller bets, looking at George's data, bringing in their SEMrush, Google Search Console data, building their concepts, be it like product-led SEO or thought leadership content on top of that is so, so important. And it goes back to those principles of where does your audience live? What's the content that they want? And again, velocity of launching these high impact content plays, that's so important to test and to figure out what does your audience want on an ever-changing basis. And then kind of like my question to George, but for Zapier, they're really good at pruning. They're really good at keeping their content in order. So then trying to keep that optimized and then growing with it. Like what works, what doesn't, scale the ones that do, try and optimize the ones that don't. These are a lot of the principles we've kind of learned and have advised some of these bigger customers on. And that's led to the likes of a Toys R Us, who manage tens of thousands of their product detail pages with us, and then try and improve conversion rate. So they go from a one-liner and a bit of a description from like a manufacturer to a fully fleshed out page that fits the needs of the kids or the parents visiting their website, all the way to a Deepgram who will run programmatic plays deeply enriched with their tone of voice and then their data that they have from their user base as well. So across all of these, I think it's just good to highlight teams that have like invested in the long run, but maintain their first principle thinking when it comes to content and then like delighting their audience. And then kind of just behind the scenes of like AirOps, what we do, like teams basically use AirOps to accelerate their marketing, their SEO strategies. But what's really important is keeping humans, or as we like to say it, experts in the loop. A great conversation in the SEO community on Monday, where someone put up the question of, is there a one click, one solves all tool for SEO? And the common response was no. And I think I completely agreed with that, in the sense of if a tool promises everything, it's cutting corners. It's not getting full coverage and full depth on the jobs that you want to be done. Sure, there's ways, and like George's GPT is a great example of like automation targeted at a specific pain point. I think that's what we're trying to do with AirOps. We try and capture your brand context, your brand knowledge, your data. So bring everything, and we'll like build our AI foundation. And then we'll start to scale workflows that are very targeted, very precise, and really that work with your team. So it's building workflows that capture your strategy and being able to scale them with experts in the loop, push it back to your CMS. That's at the core of what we want. We don't want to proliferate really bad content that, as George just showed, Google isn't going to care about. More importantly, your users aren't going to care about it, even if you find the right channel. It should be deep. It should deeply sound like you, and then be deeply resonating with your audience, showing them the insights that you have. And yeah, this is just kind of like a summary of it, of our kind of motto is like expert-led, AI-assisted. And from our team and our tooling, these are the elements we try and mix together. And as you think about getting some of these experiments running, where you're trying to move your process from being heavily manual to some parts of being automated. These are the parts I would say to keep top of mind. Maintain your strategy. Do not build without a strategy. Otherwise, it's hard to measure. It's hard to know what's working and what's not. And then take your execution and you can divide it up into some parts are owned by AI, some parts are automated, but realistically, your expert's kept in the loop. The person who is judging the quality, who like has the audience member top of mind and really feels their pains and like how it needs to be communicated, that's paramount to really, really good content. And that'll always be true. And then, yeah, if you're interested in doing more with us, I think George's insights there were eye-opening for me of just like how everything is changing. And we see it at scale on our like solutions implementation team with some of these bigger customers where they're running into it with like 1 million+ monthly search visits. And we're helping them scale their traffic, produce thought leadership content, and realistically, content that is resonating with their audience across channels. So I just had a quick look before I started the screen share, but we have, I think, 4 of these sessions left from this audience who's here. So looks like some people are jumping ahead and trying to create that wider gap to their competitors. But we have a couple of these sessions left. Anyone here who wants one, we'll make sure you get the time on our calendar. But we want to dedicate time to you, your domain, and then basically share out some best practices for AI content creation, figure out strategy-wise how you can close gaps to competitors, or how you can move ahead, how you can leave them in the dust as you start thinking about it. You're obviously turning up, giving your time on a Thursday to a session like this, learning from George, trying to get ahead. So yeah, if you want to work with our team, again, these are free. Would love to work with a lot of the logos and individuals and skill sets that we've seen here on the call today. So yeah, email team@airops.com. As Josh mentioned the just George or webinar in the subject title. One of us will look after you then, or scan the QR code and we'll be in touch. All right, I think that brings us nicely to just a finish slide. And I don't know why our logos aren't coming up, but yeah, for staying in touch with AirOps, we have our email. We're on the usual social channels. And then anything in particular, George, you want to call out? Where should people go to learn a bit more?
First, I want to thank everyone for staying until the end and for joining us in the first place. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And big thanks to the AirOps team for putting this together. Yeah, LinkedIn, you can connect, say hi, let me know how you found me. Minuttia.com is the agency website. Feel free to check it out. And you can sign up for Growth Waves. We send emails weekly on Tuesdays. And yeah, and my email is there for anyone who wants to reach out directly to me.
Amazing. Oh, I guess the image does appear. All right, Q&A time. We have about 8 or 10 minutes left. Anything come top of mind for folks as we went through that content? I have some prompters there of like maybe trends people have seen, how to combine AI and SEO, or just generally what we're seeing on a daily basis. Anything come up for folks?
I had a question. George, I know you mentioned there's different types of LLMs and you have to like kind of optimize for those. Are there any, you know, in the SEO world, we're used to like optimizing meta titles or adding certain like keywords in. Are there any type like kind of on-page things like that you're seeing appear more in influencing Claude or ChatGPT or something like that?
I think there will be. Again, it depends on I guess it depends on the search engine. For example, I would assume, especially for a website with like big visibility and good relationship with Google, if I could put it that way, I would, you know, I would assume that optimizations can happen on the page. Whereas with a tool like ChatGPT, I would assume that optimization may also be able to happen on the app. Everything is experimental at this point, and we are experimenting with some, I'm afraid, black hat methods. But you know, I can't say anything for certain at this point. I think it depends, and I think that when we have something like substantial, we will we will be able to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to know that we're all in the experimental phase. We got another question coming in from Brian. He says, what have you seen working in e-commerce SEO and retail specifically?
Brian, thank you very much for the question. I'm not really sure if I'm the right person to answer that, because I mean, I don't do e-commerce SEO, so I'm afraid to disappoint you here, but yeah.
Owen has something there for us.
Yeah, Owen has something. You're on mute, Owen.
I apologize. I saw Brian's question come in and I was like, oh, I have something in the background for this. So would recommend Brian to check out our last webinar with Kevin Indig. Kevin spent like 8 or 10 minutes on this slide, purely going through. And again, I'm not totally aware of what like retail sector you're in. When it comes to Google Shopping, Kevin shared out a lot here of honestly like the little tiny tactics and techniques to make sure that your page has the right technical SEO, the right content, the right descriptors that Google's looking for. Then there was a section within the Google store he mentioned to go and like add extra details again. And then over time, basically he was showing that a lot of the customers he's worked with and a lot of clients he's worked with have been able to drive increased like click-through rate. And then at the end of the day, more conversions from purely optimizing for the category pages. And then more broadly, when it comes to e-commerce success, like a lot of companies are selling like similar products to their competitors, or maybe they're selling the exact same product if you're a Toys R Us. So being able to get more contextually relevant content onto those pages, which may be in the form of video, so like multimedia or unique images or just more detailed content. That for a lot of the customers we've worked with, like an Anne Klein or Toys R Us, has served them very well. And then additionally, the likes of Anne Klein, who sell like women's clothing and fashion, you can check them out. But with AirOps as well, they've built kind of category articles that are able to pick themes and trends of, just like what George showed, are working for like AI search engines or in Google Trends, and then develop like curated content around those search topics to drive highly relevant like search queries and more like middle of funnel and bottom of funnel content. So happy to follow up with more details there if you want to hit me up afterwards.
We had something, thank you, Owen. We had something come in from Jonas. He was wondering if AI bots crawl Google AMP type pages, if anybody knows anything about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, thank you for the question, Jonas. I was just going to say that not exactly sure whether they will crawl accelerated mobile pages, but if you want to, monitor the activity of bots, you should check Cloudflare's radar. I will share the link, and I think that monitoring that, and also if you can just start monitoring crawler activity for your like website specifically, that will tell you what kind of content these crawlers like are looking for, right? Yeah.
Then we had one more question about how to approach Reddit SEO and any strategies you're seeing for getting appearances in Reddit.
As I mentioned, thank you for the question, Amanda. Amanda, I think, asked the question, right?
Yeah, I closed it out really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Amanda. Now, I mean, we've started running some experiments with Reddit. As I mentioned previously, and as most of you know, Reddit is a nasty place. So some of them, or most of them, are not quite successful. And you also have to consider the brand element there. We started another one. In fact, these days, I can't reveal much because it's not really white hat again, and it's we are experimenting, but I mean, for starters, I would say that you have to monitor the conversation make sure if you're working at a company, make sure that there is an account. And I think Casey Hill, I think from now he's at Active Campaign. He used to be at Bonjoro, and he had an account back, in his Bonjoro days, which was Bonjoro Bear or something like that. And he would post through that account, and kind of represent the brand. So I would recommend having an account where you can like join conversations, and how you can monitor these conversations and join the ones that are relevant to you. You can, use a tool like Gummy Search. I have no affiliation to the tool, by the way. I'm using it for free. They have paid plans as well, to monitor conversations. And when you see that something pops up that is relevant to your brand, I would say, just go in there and, participate. Owen, I guess, has something to share regarding Reddit.
I'll let Josh say a word or two on this. This is a piece of content Josh prepared with Gen. He's like a leading content marketer, and it was completely revolved around that question. So maybe, Josh, do you want to give people a quick summary so we can point them towards it afterwards?
Yeah, take a look. It has a lot of good research about just the Reddit impact, kind of similar to what George shared. But yeah, brand mentions are always important. And having like kind of different accounts kind of commenting on that. A lot of it is digital PR as well. So take a look at the article, and yeah, you'll find some good takeaways in there.
Amazing. Any last words, any last thoughts on your side, George?
No, again, thank you to everyone who joined us, and thank you to the AirOps team for putting this together. And you should reach out to the AirOps team. What they're building is really amazing. And yeah, thank you. That's all from me.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and then we'll reflect that back. I think this has been one of the best ones I've done to date. I think the depth of detail just goes to show like the effort that George and his team put into like the research, the collection of all the data, and it was like so cleanly and clearly presented with like actionable items. So I think a lot of people are sharing that sentiment in the comments. So yeah, thanks George so much to you and the team for putting all the resources together and putting the effort into the collection of it as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know we're gone a minute over, but we will put up the recording later on today, and we'll share out the deck as well if people want to dive deeper and look at the charts in more detail. And then just a final reminder, I think in 2 weeks from today, we're doing another session with Will Leatherman of Catalyst on scaling founder-led content. So a little bit more focused on like social and getting more into the weeds on AI workflows. But if you signed up through this event with Luma, we'll get an invite out to you maybe in the next week. But yeah, just want to renew massive thanks to George for joining us today, and then for each of you for taking time on your Thursday as well. And yeah, let's stay in touch, but have a good rest of your day.